I've been replaying the Ezio collection and wanted to try and make something that could reflect the experience in Dungeons and Dragons. When I started, all I did was make some stats for the variety of bombs available in Revelations, but now I've built an entire homebrew assassin class. So I'm going to take you through that now, and then make some example characters using the class. Also, in the description, I have linked a PDF with the information for the class in writing if you'd prefer to look at it that way. I've mainly taken inspiration from the Ezio games, and a little bit from Unity and Syndicate, because they had things that I thought represent the Assassin's Brotherhood well. I've stayed away from the modern games because generally I think the gear and abilities in them are more built around the time period than trying to build on the Assassin's Guild, and the people we play as aren't even really assassins, they're just sort of friends with them. So this class has been built as a variation of Rogue that sort of acts like a mix between Rogue and Fighter, which I think fits the Brotherhood well. They are skilled in stealth and will use it in some situations, but are also very capable fighters that can hold their own against numerous opponents. But before getting into the class itself, I'll need to go over the homebrew weapons I've made that come with it so that you know what's going on when they come up in things like proficiencies. First, we have the most iconic weapon in the franchise, the Hidden Blade. The weapon is designed to be used in stealth, but we also see it functioning well in open combat. It deals 1d4 damage, which is the same as a dagger, but I added some homebrew properties. The first is Concealed, which makes the weapon appear like a normal wrist guard to any who are unfamiliar with the Hidden Blade. Then there is Quick Draw, which allows the Hidden Blade to be readied and stowed without using an action or bonus action. This means that the weapons are a useful thing to have as a backup option that can be pulled out quickly should you be disarmed or throw your weapon at an enemy. Next we have the Hook Blade, which is designed to complement the Hidden Blade for the purposes of two-weapon fighting. The Hook Blade is made up of two parts, the hook and the blade, but my version doesn't do any damage, and instead a successful hit knocks the target prone and causes them to lose their reaction. This means that the weapon can be used to help make getaway without having to deal with opportunity attacks, and leaves players with the choice of having more control over opponents with the Hook Blade, or using a second Hidden Blade to deal more damage. Additionally, the Hook Blade can be used to help with climbing and jumping gaps in a similar way to how it does in the game. Now, I've also made some throwing knives that are designed to function in a similar way to the ones in Assassin's Creed do, while still being relatively balanced. The weapons themselves only do 1 damage on a successful hit, which sounds underwhelming, but they have some homebrew changes to bring up their power. First of all is multi-attack, which allows the thrower to use up to 3 of the knives at once, whether they are being used against one target or multiple. And then Quick Throw, which allows the throwing knives to be used as a bonus action. This means that the throwing knives can be a useful way to do a tiny bit of extra damage when in combat using your bonus action, but it's through sneak attacks that the weapons can become truly devastating. When the sneak attack ability is used on the throwing knives only, it is no longer limited to 1 use per turn. This means that we can do 3 separate sneak attacks in 1 turn using this weapon, which I think makes them a useful addition to the assassin's arsenal. The final main weapon I think I should cover is the Flintlock Pistol. It's up to you if you want to use guns in your adventure, if not a hand crossbow will do the job just as well. The stats I used are the ones from the Dungeon Master's Handbook, with one small addition in the property Loud, which states that nearby creatures will hear the sound of the gun going off and be alerted to your presence. This allows the gun to function in an arsenal with the hand crossbow, as one does more damage, but the other can be fired silently. Now we have bombs, which are heavily inspired by the ones found in Assassin's Creed Revelations. These bombs have a variety of functionality and are available in stores or can be crafted by characters with levels in the Assassin class. For the crafting components, I would recommend making shells available in stores along with anything else you want. I've made a table with some possible locations that the ingredients could be found. You may want to make some changes to fit with your world. For example, if you don't want to use gunpowder, you could replace it with a magical component. To add some customization to the bombs, the player is allowed to use a different type of shell to change how quickly the bomb explodes. The impact shell, which explodes on impact, for a quick use bomb. The fuse shell, which explodes after a time of 5 seconds. And finally the tripwire shell, which can be set up to detonate when the wire is knocked out of place. When a character wants to use a bomb, they must make a dexterity check to determine how accurately they manage to throw it, with a difficulty class of 14. This means that any roll of 14 or above is considered to be an accurate throw, but when a player rolls less than that, the bomb will land at a distance from the intended point of impact. The actual size of this distance will be up to the Dungeon Master to decide. Also, most of the bombs are fuse activated, meaning that a source of fire is needed to use them. The first bomb is the most famous, and the one that appears in most Assassin's Creed games. It is of course the smoke bomb. The smoke bomb uses oil to ignite dried leaves, that then let out a great amount of smoke covering a large area. When used, the area within a 15-foot radius of the bomb is considered to be heavily obscured for 1 minute. This can be used to cover an escape, or create a diversion. There is even the possibility that multiple enemies within the fog will start swinging blindly and damage each other. Next is the Caltrop Bomb, which is used to try and control the positioning of enemies. It can slow down pursuers, or can be used to direct creatures into an ambush. The bomb throws caltrops 10 feet in all directions, and when a creature passes through them, they take 1d6 damage and move at half of the movement speed they would normally. The blood bomb uses gunpowder to spray blood on all targets within a 10-foot radius, and forces them to make a wisdom saving throw. On a failure, they believe the blood is theirs, and they will become frightened for 1 minute or until calmed. The cherry bomb is the first bomb that is only available to characters that take an assassin specialization, and I'll talk about that later on. The bomb uses sulfur to create a small explosion that will draw the attention of any within earshot or visual range. The poison gas bomb uses oil to ignite poisonous petals, creating a toxic gas cloud that lasts for 2 minutes. Any creatures that are within the cloud will take 1d6 poison damage for every turn they spend within it. The creatures within or near the cloud may be able to spot the cloud or identify what is causing it, but must make an ability check to do so. The Splinter Bomb acts more like a standard offensive weapon, shooting chunks of metal at any creatures within 15 feet of the bomb, potentially causing 2d6 piercing damage to each of them. Finally is the Thunder Bomb, which can cause some force damage, but more importantly knocks creatures up to 20 feet away, and knocks them prone, helping deal with hordes of enemies that are swarming you. Now that the equipment is covered, we can actually start going over the class itself, and how these items come into play. So because I used the rogue class as a starting point for this, the base stats are going to look similar, starting with health and hit dice, which will be using the d8 per level, much like the rogue class. Then for proficiencies, we start with light armour, and then we have simple weapons, hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, short swords, pistols, and hook blades. Finally, there's thieves' tools. For skill proficiencies, we have saving throws in dexterity and wisdom. Then for skills, we will take 4 options from the choices provided. For the starting equipment, I started with the rogue setup, and expanded it to fit the new class better. So for starters, we have a choice of rapier, longsword, or short sword, and then a hand crossbow or simple weapon. If you're playing in a world with the pistol as a weapon, that can be taken in place of the crossbow. Then we have the same pack choices as rogue, and now we get onto the homebrew stuff, starting with a choice of hidden blade or hook blade. It's worth mentioning that we will be getting a hidden blade anyway, so this choice is down to whether you want a second hidden blade for additional damage, or a hook blade for more control over opponents. Then we get a choice of bomb from the 3 starting options: smoke, caltrop, or blood bomb. Finally, we are given some leather armour, a hidden blade, 10 throwing knives, and some thieves' tools. Now moving on to the abilities, a lot of them here are taken from the rogue and fighter classes, or at least inspired by them to create a sort of hybrid that I think assassins are. The first thing we get is proficiency in the smoke, caltrop, and blood bombs, as well as the ability to craft them from components. Then we have sneak attack, which functions the same way as it does in rogue to help with the stealth side of things. Next is Eagle Vision, which gives us advantage on insight, investigation, and perception checks you make on a target within 10 feet of you, to represent the ability the characters have in the games. Moving up to level 2, we have a choice of fighting style, with the options being the same as with the fighting class. Those are archery, defense, dueling, great weapon fighting, protection, and 2-weapon fighting. At level 3, we get our assassin specialization. I wanted to give the option to focus more on the stealth or combat areas of the assassin skill set, so the options here are Brawler and Infiltrator. I'll cover what they actually do later on. At 5th level, we get the rogue feature Uncanny Dodge, and at 7th level, we get Evasion to help with avoiding damage in combat. Then at 11th level, we get Extra Attack, with it improving to 3 attacks at level 16. For 14th and 15th level, I took 2 features from the Rogue's Thief subclass, those being Second Story Work to cover the assassin's incredible acrobatic ability, and Supreme Sneak, helping us avoid detection even better. Finally, at level 18, we get Elusive from the Rogue class, as well as Thief's Reflexes at 20th level, which I have renamed to Assassin's Reflexes. With these abilities, I wanted to make sure that an assassin would be capable in both stealth and combat to reflect how they operate in the games, but I also put in the specializations to allow a character to focus more on one of those 2 areas. The first subclass is Infiltrator, and it starts by giving us proficiency in the cherry and poison bombs, as well as the poisoner's kit. Then we also have the Assassinate feature from the Assassin subclass of Rogue. It gives us advantage on attacks against enemies that haven't taken a turn yet, allowing us to perform sneak attacks on them. For level 9, I've made an ability called Leap of Faith, which gives us advantage on any acrobatics checks made to try and reduce fall damage, and more importantly, the character may land on a creature to reduce their damage taken by half, and transfer it into the other creature. This can be useful for surviving falls, or as part of an air assassination to deal even more damage to the target. At 13th level, we will be getting the ability Extra Intel, which increases the range of Eagle Vision to 30 feet, and allows it to be used to gain additional information on targets, like how much ammo they have, as well as what loot. Finally, at 17th level, we get the rogue ability Death Strike, which can allow us to deal even more damage to creatures that are surprised. The other subclass I made is called Brawler, and it is based more around assassins that are better at fighting enemies head-on. The first thing we get is proficiency with martial weapons and medium armour, as well as the shrapnel and thunder bombs. We also get the fighter ability Action Surge, allowing us to take an extra action once per short rest. Then, at 7th level, we get the ability Nimble Fighter, which is inspired by the Medium Armour Master feat, and allows us to use our full dexterity modifier when working out the armour class for medium armour. It also removes the disadvantage we may have received on stealth checks. As well as this, we get to pick a second fighting style from the list to improve our combat further, and at 13th level, we get Combat Superiority. This works the same way as it does in the Battlemaster archetype, but here we learn 5 manoeuvres and use 3d10s as our superiority dice. Finally, at 17th level, we get Improved Critical from the Fighter class, and Assassin's Counter, which gives us an additional reaction to use each turn, helping us counter multiple opponents in quick succession. So that's everything for the class, but I'm also going to quickly create 2 example characters using it, and put them in the description along with the written version of the class. I was going to use Ezio, and while I think he could easily be made with this class, he's not very specialised, so I wanted some assassins who will reflect the subclasses better, and because of that I've decided to create Jacob and Evie Fry. The Fry twins individually represent the subclasses perfectly, with Jacob being a more combat-focused brawler and Evie being a stealthier infiltrator. The character sheets have been made to level 6 and are in the description, so be sure to check them out if that interests you. Also, be sure to let me know in the comments what you think of all this. I'd love to hear your feedback. Next week, I'll be finishing my series on the Fellowship of the Ring by creating a character for Frodo Baggins, so be sure to stick around if you'd like to see that.